Hi everyone, I've got Simon Wombwell and Sabrina Cox from Loughborough University today. They're both involved on the Performance Lifestyle program run at Loughborough and specifically mentoring athletes. And I thought I'd invite them along today to share their knowledge and see how directors of sport can maybe use a mentoring program in their school. So welcome both of you. Maybe you could just start by telling us, why you started the program.
Okay, thanks for having us, Chris. I think as I've been in the role for sort of over 10 years now, I can lead on that question, and then Sabrina can add in some really useful information around it too. But when we started on the journey, it was that sort of wider positioning of well-being and sort of holistic factors influence of performance were probably not as well recognised as they are today, or generally within society also not as well recognised as they are today. And we were trying to emphasise that, and in sort of a true Loughborough way, as an individual and as a service, we will always aim to try and be world leading and find some of these new pathways to try and see what's the next big performance gain, and that attachment to sort of finding purpose around what people are doing, particularly on a dual career sense, really resonated at that point. As we then went through COVID and so on, the sort of wider dimensions of well-being and how that fits into performance lifestyle again grew in recognition within a wide range of sports, and we sort of moved between player care in football developing around that point, how development managers have grown in other professional sports, and then within EIS, UKSI as it is now, how their performance lifestyle team has really formed to allow athletes to value self-reflection, take that time to step back, identify what's important to them. And we talk about things like points of realization. So how we pull forward a thought of what's impacting performance, what's going to be important to me, and reaching a conclusion on that now rather than them naturally finding it in perhaps a year's time, so we can accelerate the performance, help them reach a higher level, reach their potential, hopefully.
And Sabrina, what do you feel have been
Anything to add, Sabrina?
Yeah, I was just trying to think around. No, sorry, Chris. I was just going to say, for me, we're in that really nice position, not coming from that pure academic or, from a parent side of things. It's just that really nice thinking partnership that we can provide, and we've got some great resources that we can use to do so. But it's just really growing those kind of, I guess, life skills as well for them around considering all those areas, looking at themselves over the course of, say, that we talk about 24-hour athletes. So like, how's their whole day looking? How's everything fitting for them? Rather than thinking, we need to focus on your work right now because, it's all about the work, or we need to focus on your sport in the way a coach might. We just take that whole overview piece. And I think that's a really nice way to approach it.
And what would you say would be the key top 3-4 areas that you cover on the mentoring program that help the athletes?
I mean, for me, it depends what stage they're at, right? So sometimes if they're new in, it's actually, it is time management. How do they, they're trying to do quite a lot at once with very limited support because perhaps they're away from home for the first time. So those that are coming in for their first year, that tends to be the focus. And those that I'm working with that are transitioning out of university, we're trying to make sure, is their LinkedIn profile in place? Have they accessed the right career support? Do they know what's next? Or, how they're going to progress on, and how are they feeling about that transition? So it's different for each stage.
We talk around an underpinning philosophy of support, develop, empower, which reflects what Sabrina's just said there. So that stage of support, more of a focus on transition, how they build their social well-being on arrival to Loughborough, have an understanding of what's available in their environment, and importantly then how they maximise that and access it most effectively to again settle in and feel in a good place as quickly as possible, and then hopefully thrive. And then that development piece where we might look at individual skills, particular threads that they want to build out, or try and identify some of those threads. So that could be communication skills, leadership skills, some of the developing leaders perhaps. It could be continued planning and organisation work with some of those who are maybe not performing as well. And again, that recognition of really variable needs between that. And then ultimately into that empowered space. So the future planning piece that, again, Sabrina's mentioned, where we look at them taking ownership of their journey, because we know we've got these staged normative transitions where they are going to leave university at this certain point, and we can plan for that. Whereas in some performance environments, that won't necessarily be quite as clear, and probably reflects within the school's journey that we're sort of talking about today, where generally people will know when they are arriving and finishing on those particular chapters at school.
And I think obviously the transfer to schools is something that, I'd be really keen to see how you think this could transfer to schools, whether you are mentoring, a boy or a girl in year 7, a netballer in year 9, or someone who's joined your school in sixth form. So, what do you think would be things that directors of sport can transfer from your learning, whether they're things that have gone well or things that haven't gone well? What do you think directors of sport, what advice would you give them, and starting or developing a mentoring program in schools?
Right.
Go for it. Yeah.
So I think, taking that a strategic perspective, I think understanding the individual strengths of the staff you have around you, or access to particular nuances of expertise that aren't particularly obvious just by judging a book by the cover, I guess. So we're talking about not just sport in any sense, we're talking about that broadest concept of personal performance. So what access the schools have to pull on particular areas that may be relevant. I'm going to talk about quite often trying to map the gaps between other services. So we're trying to identify things that people aren't necessarily aware of yet. So that bit, the wider you can spread your knowledge and network to look holistically at how we solve athlete challenges, but ultimately help them thrive, has got to help. And I assume there's some brilliantly connected alumni within the school's network. That the setup that you have, Chris, in PADSIS, there's got to be some really strong connections there to just understand how it works effectively in schools and what might be out there to utilise. And obviously, places like Loughborough and others which will welcome that opportunity to join up. We would do that in the same into world-class programs. So if we've got people who are naturally going to transition into, let's say, hockey down at Bisham, then we'll try and look at how we have fluency in language use, I guess. So if we're mentoring and we're talking about certain things, we would then hope it reflects what they'll receive at world-class level. Looking to do that as they're selecting universities, and how we might go about these conversations would be fitting for some of the high performers that you're speaking to as well.
I think
for me, it's understanding that, and these people understanding that actually that wider well-being is so important for them. So having those conversations earlier on, encouraging young athletes, and young people even in that school system to explore other things, other hobbies, know what they enjoy, so that when they come away to somewhere like a university setting, one of the things that we often work with is, who are you outside of your sport, right? So if they've started to have an understanding of who they are beyond that as well, that can be really helpful, and an understanding what sort of well-being is, rather than us introducing the concept at 18.
There's one or two bits of research that have stuck with me over the last few years. So if we look at sort of brain development, that people at 25 and under are more likely to reflect the values of those around them. They're still forming their own. And my lens on that has been student age focus, so sort of 18 to 21 generally. At that school age, even more so. It's been a while since I worked more directly in schools. So looking at how that self-reflection encourages people to form their own understanding of their strengths as they look to develop their values, I think is really powerful. And equally how they've found themselves in the position that they're in. So I reference Katrina Douglas's work, who was an ex-professional golfer who I had opportunity to meet some time ago, and my understanding of her sort of narratives around performance discovery and relational, and that factor of, I almost look at it as what percentage of where you've arrived at has been defined by the relations with people around you. Are there any particular people that stand out strongly, and how they've positively steered you, or perhaps negatively influenced you, and how that sort of sits together as far as arriving at where you're at, versus that want to learn more, that true sort of growth mindset. I'm always so excited when we perhaps find some of the students coming in who just want to understand their sport to a greater extent. They want to understand themselves, want to be part of the teams, want to travel with it. That excitement's there to just learn and grow. And then the sort of performance narrative piece, where maybe extrinsically driven by wanting to be the best in the world because it means I have 1 million followers on social media, or that it's going to give me that sort of biggest income opportunity, or just the kudos to say I'm the best at something.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Simon. I think for the children I've been involved with at school, the identity piece and the values piece are massive, because there aren't many kids who know who they are and what they believe in. But once they do, I think it's really useful. And I think the other piece that I'd take from what you shared today to share with directors of sport is that sometimes you can look outside your department for mentors. There's some fantastic academic staff in schools. As you said, there's some brilliant alumni or local people that may be in a great position to mentor our children at school. So I think that's two great pieces of advice. So I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you very much. And I'd encourage everyone to look at the Performance Lifestyle page on the Loughborough University website, and get involved. Some of your former pupils may well be involved in it. But to Simon and Sabrina, thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.